I got some slides that's coming up there in just a minute. The first slide is a scripture, if you'll put that on the screen. But I'm here to tell you about the Biblical Institute of Central America. BICA, the abbreviation for our name, Biblical Institute of Central America, is what we're known by in all of the Central American countries. We operate a school that's located in El Progreso, Honduras. Our model for the school is based on a vision that was proposed by George Hall during the 1990s. Our scriptural support for the vision is 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 1 and 2. The words on the screen is a paraphrase from those scriptures that a young lady in my office wrote for me and put on a slide. I'm going to stop and show you a series of photographs. The photographs are intended to show you what our facility looks like, what our school staff looks like, what some of our students look like, what some of our graduated students look like, and what a couple of Honduran families that are great supporters of BICA look like, and I'll tell you a little bit of their stories as we go along. And I think I have my own clicker here. I'm going to start with the graduation service that took place at the end of 2022. The man sitting there with his head turned to the left is Andy Brazel. I'm going to talk about him again a little later on in my presentation. The next man is a Hispanic man, Alan Cruz. Alan and his wife Sarah I use to help me with verbal translation and culture translation. His wife was born in Honduras, and they now have respectable jobs in the United States. It's another scene of the same graduation and our graduation services take place on our campus under the canvas. I wasn't in attendance at this time, but a few minutes after this picture was taken, they had a big windstorm, but the tent did not blow away. Looking from our main building back to the highway in the distances runs from El Progreso, Honduras, runs all the way to the Pacific Ocean, goes through Tegucigalpa and on to the Pacific Ocean. Now this is turned around and looking from that gate out there, a close-up view of our main dormitory building. Another view. This gives you an idea of what 5 acres of ground that we had the ability to purchase and pay for and build facilities for our school. We tell prospective students, come and have a 2-year experience. And this is the place that they spend 2 years, and they gain a tremendous experience of life. A closer view, the upstairs of that building is men's dormitory, some study rooms, an apartment where our visiting teachers stay. Downstairs is classrooms. The back part of the building is kitchen and dining room, and over in the very right-hand corner is a medical clinic, and there's other buildings back behind this. You're driving down the highway, this is our advertising, BICA, the Biblical Institute of Central America. Marvin and Ludi Espinosa. Marvin is our local Honduranian director of the school. He oversees all of our school operations. He's married. He and Ludi have 4 children. They live on site. Ludi assists him in some of the management work. She oversees the kitchen, oversees the kitchen staff, maintains our food inventory, and she spends some time overseeing our single female students as well. Luis Bonilla, he is our assistant director. I think this picture is on another building rather than upstairs on our dormitory, but he lives in the men's dormitory. I guess he would be our men's dean. He oversees those men. And let me show you one other man that I want to talk about as a group. Roberto Otra. He was originally hired as a bus driver. We found out he had a bunch of other talents, and we have been trying to dig all of those out and put as many of them to work as we can. These 3 men, Marvin, Luis, and Roberto, are all graduates of the school. They all are equipped to teach a class if need be. They're not generally put in the schedule as a teacher other than the very beginning of school. Quite a bit of time is devoted to the study of evangelism. Luis and Roberto manage outside evangelism work. Our students spend about 70% of their time in the classroom and about 30% of their time out knocking doors, teaching the Bible, and the finishes of that kind of work. Luis and Roberto oversee those students when they go as a group, and 1 week each month, with the exception of December, they go somewhere in Honduras or in Nicaragua or in El Salvador, and occasionally to Guatemala for a week to teach the Bible for a week. We have a school bus that they travel in. The back of the bus is filled with mattresses. When they go, they usually wind up sleeping on the floor of a church building. That's why we take the mattresses. Petronilo and his wife live in the city of Progreso. They were converted to the gospel during the 1980s. He currently preaches for the San Francisco congregation in the city of Progreso, a Sunday crowd of probably 150 most of the time on Sunday morning. He's on the schedule to teach at the school a couple of weeks during the year. He makes his living as a welder. He serves on the board of directors in Honduras. The Biblical Institute of Central America is a legal U.S. 501c corporation. So individual contributions given to the school are tax deductible. We're also in the country of Honduras a legal nonprofit entity that required a Honduranian board of 10 men to serve on that board by Honduranian law. Petronilo is one of those board members that helps oversee the school in Honduras. Wilfredo and Alfredo, twin brothers. They're not quite as old as I am, but they're approaching that age. The man on that side, Alfredo, lives in Progresso. He attended the second class that Bika had back in around the year 2000. His brother went to a different study group in La Ceiba, I believe. They're terrific supporters of Bika. Since the year 2000, these two men, through their children and grandchildren, have given us almost 20 students that have gone through the school. Their families are heavily involved in the church throughout the northern third of the country of Honduras. Wilfredo lives in Cerritos, about 65 miles from where the school is. One of my every trip stops if I get close there. His wife makes a delicious cup of coffee, almost as good as Lori makes at her home. A classroom inside that main building, a class in session, a group picture of the student body, and I believe this is a couple years old that I haven't cycled out of my flash drive yet. In English, Joel and Jessica. Joel and Jessica are second grade students this year. Both of them are studying in the school. They come to us from Nicaragua, from a substantial church in Nicaragua that has a good work going on, a full-time preacher, a self-supporting congregation. The church encouraged them to come to school, but well into their 2 years of school session, the church said, we would like for you to find some other place to work. Not that they didn't want their talent back with them. They didn't necessarily need their talent back with them. Joel and Jessica are going to take on the project of working with two relatively new congregations near the school campus, one in a place called La Rosa, the other in a place called Whitewater. La Rosa meets in a pretty good sized house. There's enough room for the church to meet, and there's enough room for this family to live in that house. And they will be preaching at La Rosa in the morning, and in the afternoon they'll go to Whitewater to work with another group of brethren. They're going to be supported, have a 2-year commitment to help them try to get these churches to become self-supporting without any American dollar, we hope, in 2 years' time. They're going to be overseen by a church in Clarksville, Tennessee. The Hilldale Church of Christ will be working with this family and with another family. This is the other family. This is Kristen and Bielkas. They came as students from the city of Villa Nueva, about an hour and a half drive away from the school, a city of almost 80,000 people. They also come to us from a very substantial congregation. This family plans to go back to Villanueva and are going to plant a new congregation in the city of Pimenta. Pimenta Town is the way I translate them, a suburb of Villanueva, and we'll be starting a church from scratch. And they're also going to be overseen by this church in Tennessee that spoke about. Henry and Sandra Hernandez. Glenn knows Henry. Sandra graduated from school in 2017. Henry graduated in 2018. She had come from Ural State, not a very great distance away from the school. Henry came to us from Olancho State, about a 9 or 10 hour drive by car from where the school is located. They met as students at the school. They both went back home. She went to the community of Sarabarina, right outside of the city of Ural. And Henry went back to Olancho. As I say, he graduated at the end of 2018. In 2020, they were married, and she moved to Olancho State. He worked for the last 3 years as a chaplain for the Presidian Company, a nonprofit organization located in Alpharetta, Georgia, that provides medical and social services to families in interior Honduras. This is in the mountain country. And I'll show you another picture in just a minute to show you what I mean by the mountain country. But during this 3 years' time where he was working as a chaplain, and his education that he got at Beca qualified him to work for Presidian Company as a chaplain. When they provided services to a family, whether it was medical or social, the next day they sent a chaplain with a Bible to study. Henry was one of, I think, 3 or 4 men that were doing this work in central Honduras. And his Beca education prepared him for life to take on that task. In January of this year, Henry and Sandra were approached by a Hispanic church located in New York City. There were 2 families that live in New York that attend that congregation that were from Ural State, specifically this little town of Sarabarina, where Sandra was from. And these church members called me and asked if I would have any objection if they talked to Henry about moving to Ural State and planting a new church. And of course, we have no ties on our graduates. It's great to keep up with them. Some of them we do. Henry and I correspond every week. I read a message from him while I was sitting at Glenn and Lori's house this afternoon, talking about his weekend activities. And his message is always about teaching the Bible, using the talents that Beca imparted to him for the 2 years that he was a student. But Henry and Sandra are great examples of the vision that George had 25 years ago of what we might produce in a 2-year school. They're just tremendous examples of that. This is Henry. I got this picture some time ago. I don't remember for sure just when it was. He wrote me a caption underneath the bottom of it, and his words were, "I'm on my way to a Bible study, and it sure is a rough road." His transportation was his 2 feet. He had a motorcycle. This would not have been a very safe road to take his motorcycle on. Osmond and Kenia, 2 graduates from Beca. Kenia graduated in 2018, the same year that Henry did. Osmond graduated a year later. Another couple that met as students, and after they finished school, were married. Kenia is employed as a medical technician in a medical clinic that the church in Arkansas, where I attend, supports in the city of Progreso. We have a Honduran medical doctor that runs the clinic for us. Kenia works as this lady's assistant, and on her own time, her own initiative, she started going to school online, studying to be a medical technician, and today is a licensed medical technician and works in our clinic. Her husband provides some services also in the clinic. He provides some services at the school. They are very active. I spoke a few minutes ago about a congregation by the name of Whitewater. They attend church at Whitewater and are active in the teaching of a new congregation of people. They're using their Bika knowledge that you all help provide to this couple and others. A Bible study in progress. A campaign taking place in the city of avocados. As you see, quite often, the Bible study takes place outside in the yard. Or a lot of times, I'll get pictures that they're standing at a door, sometimes behind a barred door that they're studying through. But this young man, a Bika student, was studying with this lady in the city of Avocado. Another photograph of that same campaign, the results of one of those Bible studies that took place. I think that I culled these two pictures out of a group of about 30. So there was a lot of other scenes, but I don't have time to talk about and show all of them to you. But just to give you an idea of what our students do, and I'll talk a little more in a few minutes about the schedule that our students go through and study. A baptism, this is in the laundry tub at someone's home. A quite common place for baptisms to take place. This took place the third week of January of this year. Again, I culled this out of about 40 photographs. I think I'll talk about that particular evangelism campaign. Week one of school, month one of school, is primarily a study of evangelism, how to teach the Bible. Week 1 and 2 is generally some introduction, some general study of evangelism. One of the tools that we use for first-year students, those first week, they have to learn to teach a Bible study to a tree. Second grade students are standing by their side to critique what they're doing. The first grade students are using this as a way to get into the flow of teaching the Bible. Most of them come to us knowing how to teach the Bible, but we reteach them how to study and teach so that the recipient also knows how to teach. This baptism took place the third week of this school year, and as I say, there were about 32 baptisms, if I remember correctly, that took place that week. Andy Brazel, his wife Megan, Lydia, and Carter Culver My wife will correct me in a minute, I guess. I'll talk more about them in a few minutes. Andy is going to assume some of my responsibilities, and I call him our part-time school administrator. But I'll talk more about Andy in a few minutes. This is a short video, a slight minute, to give you an overview of what the campus looks like. Those three buildings there are fourplexes that were built to house our married students. Each building's got 4 500-square-foot apartments in it. This is the room that turned in to be a medical clinic. It's almost to the end. This is the physical experience that our students get to live in for 2 years while they're studying God's Word. It's a very inviting place to study. When I visit, I usually spend some time setting out watching the soccer game that's going on almost every evening, just to watch and listen to the sounds. Using the vision that George proposed 25 years ago, we asked churches in Central America to recommend members of their congregation to apply for acceptance into BICA's study program. The applicant has to be willing to commit 2 years of their life to study. BICA in return gives that student a tuition-paid 2-year biblical education. After graduation, we ask those students to return home to their congregation and put that education to work growing God's kingdom. Our students study in the classroom about 25 hours each week. They're taught by preachers from churches in Central America. They use the first 2 weeks of the school year in January to study evangelism, and I talked about that and the results of that last week's evangelistic outreach. 1 week each month, except December, they go as a student body to campaign with some church in Central America. The week of June 11th of this year, they campaigned in a city called San Juan Pueblo, working with a medical and dental group from Tyler, Texas. The Texas group was working in 2 rural churches. One of them was the church that one of those 2 twins that I showed a picture of there a few minutes ago. And that week, the students from BICA were in San Juan, where the medical group stayed that week in a hotel on a dairy farm, by the way. And they spent that week out knocking doors in the city of San Juan. BICA's first class began in January of 1998. Last November, we graduated class number 24. During that time, we've returned more than 300 trained workers to the church in Central America. Class number 25 is in session now. There are 9 grade 2 students and 10 grade 1 students. 5 are married. The wife of one of those married men is a student. And then there are 13 single men and women. This year's graduation will be December the 2nd. Extend an invitation to you to take a easy trip to Honduras. United flies every day from the Houston airport, leaves at about 9:48, I believe. 2 hours and 52 minutes, I believe, is the scheduled flying time from Houston to San Pedro Sula. Our students and staff live on our campus, which is located about 4 miles south of the city of El Progreso. El Progreso is a city of about 200,000 people. Our campus is located on 4.8 acres of land. We have 20,000 square feet of floor space of dorm and school rooms and kitchen and the facilities and the various things that it takes to operate a school like this. And that land and buildings is paid for. We have space, dorm space, for 50 students. Our staff could probably handle 50 students. We have financial support for about 30 students. So we have space to grow. Because under the oversight of a board of directors, they serve from churches in Woodland Oaks, Tyler, and Marble Falls, Texas, and Little Rock and Rogers, Arkansas. I don't have much time left, but I'd like to talk about Andy Brazel, the last picture that I showed you up there. We're looking to the future of BICA. On June the 1st, we employed Andy Brazel as a part-time school administrator. He's on the staff at Southside Church of Christ in Rogers, where I attend. He's a Harding graduate. He's worked as a youth minister for 20 years, most of that time in Rogers, Arkansas. We're redesigning his work time, and he's going to be working for Southside Church 60% of his time, and they're going to be paying him 60% of his support. BICA is going to acquire 40% of his time, and I call him our part-time school administrator. But this is a new expense that we've got to fit in to our budget. And I've been working for several months trying to raise money to support Andy in his position. We need to support Andy about $2,600 a month to provide his part-time support. When we decided a year ago to start this journey, we received a one-time $20,000 contribution to begin this work. So I have Andy's salary covered until about the middle of February next year. So Andy is hoping that I'll get out and find supporters to provide money next year to increase our monthly contributions to support him. Thank you very much for allowing me this time. Thank you very much for your support. Woodland Oaks is in a category with 3 other congregations that the 4 together provide about 45% of the financial support for BICA. So you brethren are a very important part of this mission outreach. I've had the good fortune, I guess, the way I would describe it, to be a part and see the growth of the church in Honduras. In 1978, it wasn't meeting in very many places. There wasn't very many people that called themselves members of the Church of Christ. 45 years later, it's a whole different picture. This morning in the country of Honduras, while we were meeting here, the church was probably meeting in 400 places in the country of Honduras. BICA has not been the only impetus that caused the church to grow these years, but Bika has been a major contributor to the church growing throughout Central America, and it has fulfilled the vision that George had 25 years ago. And I'm very happy to have known the man and to have worked with him in this effort. And again, thank you very much for allowing me to stand before you this evening.